The scream in the night, the alien forest was never quiet, but tonight something was different. Strange shadows danced between the twisted, glowing trees. Small animals hid in their burrows. The wind carried a sound not heard before a scream. High and sharp, echoing far across the cold night. It was not the scream of an animal. It was the scream of someone desperate and afraid. Deep in the forest, an alien girl named Lyra lay trapped. Her tail, long and strong, was stuck under heavy rocks. Her green skin was scratched and bleeding, her golden eyes wide with fear. She had been climbing the rocky slope when the ground broke apart, and everything crashed down on her. Now, no matter how hard she pulled, her tail would not come free. "Help! Somebody help me!" Lyra screamed again, her voice shaking. She knew her people lived somewhere nearby. Maybe someone would hear her. But the only answer was the whisper of the wind and the slow, steady drip of water from the rocks above her head. Minutes turned into hours. Lyra's arms grew weak. Her throat felt raw from screaming. She tried to stay awake, but fear made her mind wander. She thought of her home, of her family. Would they miss her? Or would they just forget? Suddenly, a distant sound reached her ears, a crunch of leaves, slow and careful. Lyra held her breath. Was it one of her own kind, or something worse? Her heart pounded. Stories told to young alien children flashed in her mind, stories of humans, dangerous and strange, who sometimes came to the forest. Humans, her elders said, never helped anyone but themselves. But now, as the footsteps came closer, Lyra didn't care who it was. She just wanted to be free. Not far away, a human explorer named Jack was wandering through the darkness. He held a small flashlight, its weak beam showing only the path in front of his feet. Jack was lost. He had come to this planet with a team, but now he was alone. His ship had crashed, and he didn't know if anyone else was alive. He heard the scream and stopped. At first, he thought it was just his tired mind playing tricks. But the scream came again, louder and full of pain. Jack knew he should keep walking. This planet was dangerous at night, but he couldn't ignore that voice. What if someone really needed help? Jack took a deep breath. He tightened the strap of his old backpack and started moving towards the sound. Every step made his heart beat faster. His boots sank into soft mud. Something big moved in the bushes, but he didn't run. He remembered his little sister back home, how she used to scream when she was scared, and how he always came running. The scream came again, softer this time. Jack pushed through the thick plants. Suddenly, his flashlight shined on something he had never seen before. There, trapped under rocks, was a girl, an alien girl. Her skin glowed a little in the light, and her tail looked twisted and stuck. Lyra saw him and froze. She wanted to scream again, but no sound came out. She had never seen a human this close. His face looked strange, but his eyes were worried, not angry. Jack knelt down and spoke in a gentle voice. "Are you hurt? Can you move?" Lyra blinked, not sure if she should answer. Her people always said never to trust humans, but the pain was too much. She nodded slowly, then shook her head. "Tail, trapped, can't move." Jack looked at the rocks. They were heavy, but maybe he could move them. He put down his bag and started to lift one rock, then another. Lyra watched every movement. She was ready to bite or scratch if he tried to hurt her, but he just worked quietly. Suddenly, something howled in the distance, a sound that made both Jack and Lyra freeze. Jack's hands shook, but he kept working. "We have to hurry," he said, trying to sound calm. He used all his strength, pushing one of the biggest rocks away. Lyra's tail moved a little, but she gasped in pain. Jack stopped. "Sorry, I'll be careful." For a moment, they just stared at each other. Two strangers in the night, both scared, both needing help. Jack tried again, this time with more care. As he lifted another rock, Lyra's tail slid out a bit more. She cried out, But it was not the same desperate scream, it was a cry of hope. Footsteps in the forest grew louder. Something big was coming their way. Jack knew they didn't have much time. But now he was sure he couldn't leave her behind. As the part ended, Lyra's eyes filled with tears, not just of pain, but of a strange hope she had never felt before. Maybe tonight, the stories about humans would change forever. Stranger. In the shadows, night in the alien forest was never safe. Monsters waited behind every shadow, and every step could lead to danger. But as Jack worked to free Lyra's tail, both of them forgot about the dark dangers for a moment. The only thing that mattered was survival, and maybe for the first time, trust. Jack's hands were scratched and aching. Every rock he moved felt heavier than the last. The alien girl, Lyra, kept watching him, her bright golden eyes sharp with fear and suspicion. Even now, she was not sure if she should trust this strange human. She had heard so many stories about humans, how they tricked, how they hunted, how they never cared for anyone but themselves. But Jack did not act like a monster. He breathed heavy, sweating and tired, but his voice was soft. "It's almost out. Just one more rock, okay?" he said, wiping his forehead. Lyra wanted to be brave. She tried not to show the pain, but her tail throbbed with every heartbeat. She winced, biting her lip, but forced herself to nod. "Do it," she whispered. Jack pressed his boots against the largest stone, using every muscle to push. The rock groaned, finally shifting just enough. Lyra gasped and yanked her tail free. The sudden movement sent a shock of pain through her body, making her cry out. But the sound was quickly drowned out by a new noise, a low, rumbling growl that sent a chill through the air. Both Jack and Lyra froze. In the trees, glowing red, eyes blinked in the darkness. A giant beast, with claws as long as Jack's arm and fur as black as the night, was watching them. It sniffed the air, hungry and curious. Jack tried to hide his fear. He picked up a broken branch, holding it like a spear. He whispered, "Don't move," but Lyra was trembling. Her people said if you run, the beast chases faster. If you fight, you have to win, because there is no second chance. The beast moved closer, teeth bared. Jack's mind raced. He looked around for anything he could use, his flashlight. He flicked it on and shone it right in the beast's eyes. The animal roared, blinking and shaking its head. It didn't like the bright light. Now, Jack yelled, grabbing Lyra's arm. For a moment, Lyra hesitated. No one had ever touched her like this before. But the beast roared again, and she let Jack pull her up. She limped, her tail dragging, but adrenaline pushed her forward. They ran, dodging trees and jumping over roots. The beast crashed behind them, breaking branches and howling. Jack led the way, pulling Lyra when she slowed. His breath came fast, but he never let go. He risked a glance back. The creature was close, eyes wild and furious. Lyra tripped on a root and fell hard, her injured tail useless. Jack spun around, helping her up. The beast was almost on them. Jack did the only thing he could think of. He swung the flashlight in a wild circle, creating strange, spinning shadows. The beast stopped, confused by the moving lights. "Hide!" Jack hissed, dragging Lyra behind a fallen log. They pressed, close together, hearts pounding. The beast sniffed the air, searching. Jack held his breath. Lyra, too afraid to move, pressed her face into his shoulder, wishing she could disappear. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the beast growled and wandered off, distracted by another sound in the forest. Jack did not move until the footsteps faded. Slowly, Lyra pulled away. She stared at Jack, her eyes full of questions. "Why did you help me?" she whispered, voice small and tired. "You could have run," Jack shrugged, breathing hard. "Couldn't leave you, wouldn't be right." He looked at her injured tail, then dug in his backpack for a bandage. "Let me help, please?" Lyra hesitated. No human had ever asked. for her permission before. In her world, strength was everything. But now, hurt and exhausted, she nodded. Jack cleaned the wound gently, using water from his canteen. Lyra winced but let him work. For the first time, she realized maybe not all humans were the same. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to them than the old stories said. In the quiet, Jack asked, "What's your name?" Lyra answered softly, "Lyra." "My name is Lyra," Jack smiled. "I'm Jack. Looks like we're stuck together, Lyra. At least for tonight." For a moment, they both managed a tired, shaky laugh. But deep in the forest, other eyes watched, and new dangers waited. The night was not over. Their journey had only just begun. Race against the beast. The night air was sharp and cold as Jack and Lyra crouched behind the fallen log. Every shadow in the forest felt alive. Every snap of a twig sounded like danger. But both of them knew the biggest danger was still out there. Just beyond the trees, the beast with red eyes, hunting for its next meal. Lyra's tail throbbed painfully, but she forced herself not to make a sound. She remembered the beast's smell, hot and sharp like burned metal. It was a hunter, and she was now its prey. Jack noticed Lyra's shaking hands and tried to whisper comfort, but his voice was little more than a shaky breath in the darkness. "We have to move," Jack whispered. "If we stay, it'll find us." Lyra nodded, fear mixing with shame. Her people always said she was strong. But tonight, she depended on a human she'd been taught to fear. Jack looked around, searching for a way out. The trees here were thick, the ground tangled with roots and stones. But there was one thing he did notice. A line of strange blue mushrooms that glowed faintly in the dark. Jack pointed. "We'll follow those. Maybe they lead somewhere safe." Lyra tried to stand, but her tail dragged. Jack offered his arm. This time, she took it without arguing. Together, step by step, they slipped from behind the log, moving as quietly as they could. The forest was a maze. Branches scratched Jack's face, and the thick air smelled of moss and fear. Behind them, the beast's heavy breathing grew louder. Its glowing eyes darted through the darkness, never losing their trail for long. Suddenly, Jack's foot caught on a root, and he stumbled. Lyra gasped, steadying him. For a second, they almost laughed, two broken, tired survivors helping each other in the dark. But then the beast roared, a deep, earth-shaking sound that made the very ground vibrate. Jack grabbed Lyra's hand. And they ran. The blue mushrooms lit a narrow path, winding through the trees and over small streams. The beast crashed after them, snapping branches like toothpicks. Lyra's breath came in fast, painful gasps. Her tail ached, and every step sent a shock of pain up her spine. Jack noticed, but there was no time to stop. "Hold on just a little more," he urged. Up ahead, the path split a shallow cave on one side, thick brush on the other. Lyra made a split-second choice. "Cave!" she shouted. They dove inside, squeezing past the rough rocks just as the beast leapt at them. Its claws scraped the stone, but it was too big to fit. For now, they were safe. Inside, the cave was dark and cold. Lyra collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving. Jack leaned next to her, listening as the beast prowled outside, angry and impatient. Its growls echoed, bouncing around the stone walls. Jack used his flashlight to check Lyra's tail. The wound was ugly, swollen, and bleeding again. He tore his shirt into strips and wrapped the injury. "You're brave," he said, tying the last knot. "Most people would have given up." Lyra stared at him, surprised. "I thought humans were all heartless," she admitted quietly. "But you're not." Jack chuckled softly. "I thought aliens never needed help. Looks like we were both wrong." Outside, the beast finally gave up and wandered away, crashing through the undergrowth in search of easier prey. The forest grew silent again, but Jack knew it wouldn't be safe for long. As they rested, Lyra told Jack about her people's traditions. how tails were a sign of strength, how she would be shamed if she returned home injured. Jack listened, his heart heavy. He thought of his own family, far away on another planet, and wondered if he would ever see them again. For a moment, they were just two lost souls in the darkness, joined by pain, fear, and a growing trust. But outside, in the night, new dangers waited. Jack and Lyra would have to be even braver for what was coming next. Escape through the shadows. The cave was dark, but Jack and Lyra could not rest long. The beast's angry roars still echoed in their ears, and both knew the forest held more dangers than just one hungry hunter. Jack switched off his flashlight to save its last bit of power. The only light was the faint blue glow from Lyra's scales, shining softly in the darkness. Lyra felt cold. Her tail ached and she could not sit comfortably. But she did not want to show Jack her pain. In her world, showing weakness was the same as inviting trouble. She remembered the rules her mother taught her: never trust a stranger, never show pain, never ask for help. Tonight, she had already broken every rule. Jack checked his old watch, then looked at Lyra. "We can't stay. If the beast comes back, we'll be trapped." Lyra nodded, her golden eyes uncertain. "I can walk, but slowly. My tail, it hurts." She hated how small her voice sounded. Jack didn't laugh or look down on her. Instead, he found a long stick and offered it to her as a walking staff. "Lean on this. We'll go together. You set the pace." Outside, the forest felt even darker than before. The air was thick and heavy. Every step sent pain through Lyra's body, but Jack stayed by her side. He didn't rush her. Sometimes he even cracked a small joke to lighten the fear. And to his surprise, Lyra let out a tiny laugh. But the dangers were not finished. Strange clicking sounds came from the trees above. Shining yellow eyes watched them from high branches. Lyra tensed. Night stalkers. They never come down unless they smell blood. Jack's heart pounded. He looked at Lyra's bleeding tail and quickly took off his jacket, tying it tightly around her wound. No blood for them to smell now. He whispered, trying to hide his worry. They crept through the brush, sticking close to the biggest trees. Lyra whispered directions, her voice trembling but brave. "There's a safe path by the water. My people use it when we're lost." Jack followed, trusting her alien instincts. Suddenly, they heard a strange bubbling sound. A deep, wide river blocked their way. Its black water rushed over sharp rocks, and the current was fast. Jack studied the banks. "Can you swim?" he asked. Lyra shook her head, ashamed. "With my tail, yes. Now, I don't know." Jack frowned, thinking hard. He found a fallen tree lying halfway across the water, slick with moss. "We can cross there, one at a time. Hold tight to the branch." Lyra hesitated. The water below looked cold and deadly. But Jack held out his hand. "I'll go first. If I can do it, you can too." He started across, arms stretched out, balancing. Carefully. The branch bent under his weight, but he made it to the other side. Now it was Lyra's turn. She took a deep breath and started across, gripping with her hands and trying not to look down. The branch shivered under her, and halfway across her tail slipped. She almost fell, but Jack reached out, grabbed her wrist, and pulled her safely onto the muddy bank. For a moment, Lyra just lay there, shaking. She looked at Jack with wide eyes, realizing he had risked his own life for her. "Thank you," she whispered, voice trembling. Jack smiled, wiping mud from his face. "Teamwork, right?" They moved away from the river, following Lyra's memory of secret trails. Soon, the air smelled sweeter, and the dangerous sounds faded. They found a quiet clearing where giant flowers glowed softly, and the ground was covered in moss. Lyra collapsed, exhausted. Jack shared his last piece of food, a protein bar, and Lyra took a tiny bite, surprised at the strange taste. As they rested, Lyra stared at the stars above. She remembered how she used to watch them with her sister, wondering about other worlds. Now she was sitting next to a human, feeling both scared and safe at the same time. Jack noticed her shivering and placed his jacket over her shoulders. "Get some sleep, I'll keep watch." For the first time, Lyra closed her eyes without fear. She realized maybe not all humans were monsters. Maybe, just maybe, some could be friends. But deep in the shadows, other dangers waited. Their journey was not over yet. The path home would test both their courage and their trust, again and again. The dangerous river morning arrived with a thick, cold mist hanging over the alien forest. Jack awoke to the sound of rushing water and the sight of Lyra curled up next to him, her injured tail tucked under her arm. He could see the pain on her face, even though she tried to hide it. Still, she forced a brave smile when she noticed he was awake. For a moment, there was peace. But the moment quickly faded when Lyra remembered where they were, lost, hunted, and still far from safety. The sound of the river nearby was both a promise and a threat. Jack stood up, stretched, and studied their surroundings. "If we follow the river, maybe we'll find your village," he suggested. Lyra nodded, but her eyes were full of worry. The two set off, moving slowly. The thick forest thinned as they approached the water, and soon the wild river came into view. Its waters were dark, deep, and filled with sharp rocks that jutted out like the teeth of a sleeping monster. The current moved quickly, swirling with dangerous power. Lyra stopped at the riverbank and shook her head. "This river, it's forbidden. My people say only fools try to cross here. Many have drowned." Her tail trembled, the pain making her voice shake. Jack didn't argue. He looked upstream and downstream, but saw no easy way across. He found a wide, fallen log stretching partway over the river, its bark slick with dew. "We can't go back," he said gently. "Let's try. I'll help you." Lyra wanted to argue, but she knew there was no choice. The memory of the beast in the night still haunted her. Together, they climbed onto the log, moving slowly. Jack went first, balancing carefully. Lyra followed, gripping the log with both hands, her injured tail dragging behind her. Halfway across, the log creaked and shifted. Lyra froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The water below looked icy and deep. She closed her eyes and tried to move, but her strength was fading. Suddenly, a sharp cracking noise echoed. The log was starting to break under their weight. Jack shouted, "Quick! Crawl to me!" Lyra forced herself forward, her hands shaking. Just as the log snapped and tilted, Jack reached out, grabbed Lyra's arm, and pulled her onto the far bank. They both tumbled into the mud, breathing hard. Lyra's tail was bleeding again, and she bit back tears. She felt weak, embarrassed, and afraid. But Jack quickly tore a piece from his shirt to make a bandage. "You did great," he said, trying to keep her spirits up. "You were brave." They rested for a few moments, catching their breath. Lyra looked across the river at the broken log and shivered. She realized that, without Jack, she would never have made it. For the first time, she truly felt thankful for his stubborn kindness. But there was no time to rest for long. The roar of the beast echoed somewhere far behind them, reminding them the forest was still dangerous. Jack helped Lyra stand, and together they pushed forward, following a faint trail along the river. As the sun rose higher, the forest changed. The trees grew smaller, the light brighter, and strange alien flowers bloomed along the path. Birds with bright blue wings sang songs that Lyra remembered from childhood. For a moment, she smiled, but their troubles were not over. Lyra's tail hurt more and more, and her steps grew slow and shaky. Jack supported her, letting her lean on his arm. When she stumbled, he caught her. When she cried out in pain, he tried to make her laugh with silly jokes about human food and alien bugs. Finally, they found a shallow stream that branched off from the river. Its water was clear and cool. Jack knelt down, dipped his bottle, and offered Lyra a drink. She accepted, grateful. As they rested by the stream, Lyra looked at Jack and finally asked the question she had been holding back. "Why are you helping?" "Me? Even after all this?" Jack smiled softly. "Because no one deserves to be left alone, not on any planet." Lyra was silent, but in her heart, something changed. The stories about humans were wrong, she realized. At least this one was different. They sat together, side by side, listening to the water and the distant sounds of the wild forest. For the first time, Lyra began to believe that, together, they might just survive whatever dangers still waited ahead. The healing secret: the sun was high, shining weak golden light through the alien trees as Jack and Lyra followed the narrow stream away from the wild river. The forest felt different, now brighter and more alive, but Lyra could not ignore the pain in her tail. She limped, forcing herself to keep going, her face tight with effort. Every few steps she had to stop and rest. Jack watched her with worry. He knew the bandages he had made were not enough. "We need to clean your wound," he said, kneeling beside her. "If it gets worse, you could get sick." Lyra hesitated. In her culture, showing weakness even to friends was a shameful thing. But her strength was fading, and Jack's concern was genuine. With a small nod, she let him unwrap the dirty cloth from her tail. Jack carefully washed the wound with water from the stream, his hands gentle. He used medicine from his emergency kit, a small packet of healing ointment made for human skin. "I don't know if this will work on you," he joked quietly, trying to make her smile. "Maybe you'll grow a second tail." For the first time, Lyra laughed, a light, musical sound. It surprised both of them. "Don't joke. My sisters would never let me forget it." Jack smiled and finished wrapping the wound in a fresh bandage. "There, good as new, or at least better than before." They sat quietly for a while, listening to the sounds of the forest. Lyra broke the silence. "Why do you care so much?" "My people said humans only look after themselves." Jack thought for a moment. "That's not true for everyone. My family taught me to help others. Back home, I looked after my little sister. She always got into trouble, just like you." He grinned, and Lyra's cheeks turned a soft shade of blue, a blush in her species. Lyra looked down, suddenly shy. "My people, we never trust outsiders. But you saved me, twice." The mood changed when Lyra spotted movement in the grass. She tensed, afraid the beast had returned, but instead a small animal appeared, an alien healer mouse, famous among Lyra's people for its gentle nature and healing saliva. The mouse approached, sniffed Lyra's tail, and then carefully licked the bandage. Lyra gasped. "It's a sign. The healer mouse only comes to those who need help the most." Jack watched in amazement as the mouse finished its work and disappeared back into the grass. Lyra slowly moved her tail and blinked in wonder. The pain. "It's not so bad now." For the first time since the accident, Lyra felt hope return. Jack grinned. "See? Sometimes the universe gives us a little help." They continued their journey, moving slower but with a new sense of purpose. Lyra told Jack stories of her childhood, how she and her sisters would race along the riverbanks, how she always tried to be the fastest, even if it meant taking risks. Jack shared stories of his own, a broken leg from climbing a tree, the taste of chocolate, the sound of rain on his window at night. The two laughed together, forgetting the fear for a moment. The forest didn't seem so threatening when they walked side by side, sharing secrets and dreams. As dusk settled over the trees, they found a safe place to rest, a hollow under the roots of a giant tree, hidden from the eyes of predators. Jack made a small fire, careful not to attract attention, and they shared the last bits of food from his pack. Lyra looked up at the stars, her eyes shining. "I always wondered if I'd meet a human. I never thought it would be like this." Jack smiled, his own eyes tired but warm. "Me neither. But I'm glad it was you." Lyra fell asleep first, her tail curled close, her breathing steady and calm. Jack stayed awake, listening to the quiet night, thinking about everything they had survived and what still lay ahead. Somewhere out there, Lyra's village waited. And Jack promised himself he would get her home, no matter what. New bonds forged morning sunlight, broke through the ancient trees, painting the world in gold and green. Lyra woke slowly, her mind heavy with memories of pain and fear. But then she felt something new, a warmth on her tail, the gentle pressure of Jack's careful bandage and the soft blanket he'd wrapped around her as she slept. For the first time in days, she felt safe. Jack was already awake, crouched by the dying fire, drawing shapes in the dirt. He looked tired, but his eyes brightened when Lyra sat up. "How's the tail?" he asked softly. Lyra flexed her tail. It still hurt, but the pain was less than before. "It's healing," she said, surprised at her own hope. "Thank you." Again, Jack grinned. "Toughest tail I've ever met." They ate the last of Jack's food, just a few crumbs and a piece of dried fruit. Lyra's stomach growled, but she tried to hide her hunger. Jack noticed but only smiled. "Let's get you home," he said. "I promised, remember?" Together, they set out, following a path Lyra remembered from childhood, a winding trail marked by trees with white leaves. Every step was slow, but they supported each other. When Lyra stumbled, Jack helped her up. When Jack grew tired, Lyra told him stories to make him laugh. After hours of walking, the forest began to change. The trees thinned, the air smelled sweeter, and the sound of running water grew stronger. Lyra's heart pounded. "We're close, my people are near." Suddenly, voices echoed ahead. Lyra froze. Would her people accept her wounded and brought home by a human? Jack sensed her worry and squeezed her hand. "It's okay. I'm with you." They stepped into a clearing. Lyra's people were gathered there, their eyes wide with shock as they saw her limp forward. Supported by Jack, gasps and whispers spread through the crowd. Some pointed at the human, suspicious and afraid. Others looked at Lyra's tail and shook their heads in sorrow. Lyra's mother rushed forward, tears in her eyes. She hugged Lyra tight, ignoring the blood and mud. "We thought you were lost forever," she cried. Lyra held on, unable to speak, just letting the relief wash over her. The village chief, tall and stern, stepped forward. He looked Jack up and down, then turned to Lyra. "You bring a human to our home?" he demanded. Lyra stood straight, her fear melting away. "He saved my life more than once. Without Jack, I would be dead. He is not like the stories." The chief hesitated. The crowd murmured. Jack waited, unsure what would happen next. But Lyra's courage spoke louder than any rumor. "He is my friend," she said, voice strong. A small alien child stepped out of the crowd, eyes big and curious. She walked right up to Jack and reached out, touching his hand. "Are you scary?" she asked in a tiny voice. Jack knelt down, smiling gently. "Not if you're nice to me." Laughter rippled through the crowd. The tension eased. The chief nodded at Jack, slow but respectful. "You have done us a great kindness. You will always be welcome here as Lyra's friend." That night, the village celebrated Lyra's return. Food, laughter, and songs filled the air. Lyra sat beside Jack, her tail wrapped gently, her heart full for the first time in days. Later, under the stars, Lyra and Jack watched the fire burn low. "Will you go home now?" Lyra asked softly. Jack was quiet. "Maybe one day, but not until I know you're really safe." Lyra smiled, a spark of pride in her eyes. "You already gave me more than safety. You gave me hope. You changed the old stories," Jack nodded, "and you changed mine." As dawn colored the sky, two friends once strangers looked out at a world made new by courage and trust. Whatever adventures waited next, they would face them together.